Welcome to Spotlight Sessions, where we shine a
What's
light
your
on
story?
incredible. What does accessibility mean to you?
What's your mission?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Spotlight Sessions. My name is Avital and I'm your host today. I'm really excited because today we're speaking to Lara Ceisel, who is the Executive Director of the Barbara Stone Foundation. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. We're here in Greenville, South Carolina. So it's the morning and I'm also very excited to be here, and we love working with accessiBe's.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, why don't we dive right in? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep. Like you said, my name is Lara Ceisel, and I'm the Executive Director of the Barbara Stone Foundation. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, actually, and I went to Arizona State and studied special education. I have been working with the disability community for probably 20 plus years. I was an ABA therapist, so applied behavioral analysis therapist for children with autism through college. And then I worked at a variety of camps, actually, some more in the recreation world, but camps that specifically serve people with disabilities. And I moved to Greenville in about 2008, where I continued to work at a camp. And then in 2010, I took a position as the recreation coordinator at a local Parks and Rec organization. And through that organization, I worked for a camp called Camp Spearhead, which is an overnight summer camp for children and adults with special needs and disabilities. And I was also the area director for Special Olympics for 10 and a half years through that role. And I have been with the Barbara Stone Foundation since January of 2021. So I just celebrated my 2-year anniversary, and I'm really—
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I feel like I get to do this job. And I feel like the last 10 years of work here in Greenville and getting to know families and really what the wider disability community wants and needs was really helpful in my role as the executive director and becoming the executive director of the Barbara Stone Foundation.
Amazing. Wow. I feel like that career path is so amazing because you've worked for so long within the community. And I feel like that really, kind of like you said, gives you the tools to be an advocate for the community and, really, make a difference. So that's really amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about the Barbara Stone Foundation?
I'd love to. So Barbara Stone actually is a person from Greenville. Barbara Stone she's not alive anymore. She passed in 2013. But Barbara Stone was really one of the visionaries in Greenville that created disability services and established what is today an organization called Thrive Upstate. But that was the original, like our county disabilities and special needs board. So she had a son who was born with severe and profound disabilities in the 60s, and doctors recommended that Barbara institutionalize her son, Barham. And, at the time, I'm a little younger than that. So, but my understanding is that people listened to their doctors and really kind of did the status quo. So Barbara tried that with Barham and was really unhappy with the situation and pulled Barham out and back home in the late 60s, so 1968. Barham was about 7 or 8 years old. So she brought Barham home and said, basically, made a call to action to all of Greenville and said, we need to do better as a community. And so I'm giving you this long history because I think it's really important to understand who Barbara was and that she truly was this visionary who established services in Greenville at a time when services were not being created. People were kind of just doing. They were kind of surviving instead of thriving.
Mhm.
And
Right.
Barbara said, well, I want Greenville to thrive, and I want our people with disabilities to thrive as well. So uh, Barbara worked to, one, establish Greenville County Special Needs and Disabilities Board, but she also established the camp that I worked at for 10 and a half
Mhm.
years, Camp Spearhead. And Barham was
Wow.
one of our campers, and is still a camper today in his 60s. There's no age limit on campers at Camp Spearhead. So the Barbara Stone Foundation works very closely with Camp Spearhead,
Mhm.
and in so in 1991, the Barbara Stone Foundation was actually called the Greenville Disabilities Foundation, and we served as the fundraising arm of
Mhm.
the Special Needs and Disabilities Board here in Greenville. In 2001, the board of directors, including Barbara, um, kind of reevaluated how we were serving the community, and I think wanted to expand the reach. And I wasn't here in Greenville yet, so the history is really just what I've read and know from
Mhm.
Barbara and other people. But they really wanted to expand the reach and serve more than just the disabilities board. Although that board is one of the largest in the state, we have one of the largest disability boards and communities of people with disabilities in the state of South Carolina. So they kind of developed a new strategic plan, and they did not have an executive director. They were strictly a volunteer board,
Mhm.
and their mission really was to raise money in order to invest in other programs around Greenville that serve the disability community. In around 2012, they hired their first executive director, and he kind of paved the way for what the Barbara Stone Foundation is today. Our mission is to serve as a champion for individuals with disabilities, and we really do that in three ways. We connect people and agencies to each other.
Mhm.
So we connect people to service providers or other self advocates. We connect family members to service providers, and then through one of our initiatives, Greenville Can, which stands for Collaborative Action Network, we really connect service providers and agencies to kind of prevent this siloing and discuss really as a community what the gaps in services are and how we can work together to maximize our
Mhm.
resources and provide solutions. So we connect. We also too create opportunities and services. So through our initiative Greenville Can, but we also have another initiative which we just started called the UP Employment Initiative, which stands for Upward Professionals, and that is an initiative that we launched in February of 2022. And it's really
Mhm.
aimed at designing a world class workforce with a replicable initiative that can be used across businesses and industries for inclusive employment. Um, we also do an annual event called Can Talks, which is it's fashioned or designed after the famous TED Talks, and we it happens in October every year, and we have about
Mhm.
5 to 6 local speakers who have a disability, and either talk about something that they're passionate about through the lens of a disability, of living with a disability, or they kind of talk about their journey of life with a disability and um, bring awareness to our community in a little bit more of an intimate way. So this is an evening event in a theater where people can really sit back and get comfortable with being a little
Mhm.
uncomfortable, and the variety of the diversity of people that we invite to speak is pretty broad. So we have people who work, and then we have people who are at home with a care partner. So
Mhm.
it's a really incredible event, and we just had our third annual Can Talk. So we're really looking forward to next year's Can
Wow.
Talks. So we connect people. We create opportunities and services. And then lastly, we support opportunities and services. So we maintained that kind of fundraising and investment arm of what Barbara Stone Foundation was back in the 90s. And we really do. We raise money in order to reinvest in existing programs or programs that we want to partner with,
Mm-hmm.
agencies, organizations that we want to partner with that can kind of fill gaps in services and who may already be providing solutions to those barriers or want to work with us to find those solutions and establish those solutions in our community.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing so much, and that's really amazing. Um, I am curious. You mentioned that you only recently started at the Barbara Stone Foundation, but that you worked at the camp for a really long time. And I'm curious, throughout your time, both at the camp and also with Barbara Stone Foundation, is there a memorable moment or a story from your time, there that either had a lasting impact on you or something that you would like to share with our viewers?
Yes. So I think, oops, I moved my computer. So I really loved the question about what motivated me to become a
Mhm.
part of this organization because I think that kind of feeds into that question. So I actually met Barbara in 2011, and this was a woman who was incredibly determined and also very practical. And
Mhm.
practical in the sense that she worked really hard to get things accomplished. But I
Mhm.
think she also had this vision for a community in Greenville that other people didn't really grasp at the time. And I think that was less of a story and more of this piece that really um, brought it home for me and made me realize that Greenville
Mhm.
is such a great community. People love living here, and it's we're doing wonderful things, but we can do better, and that there are people
Mhm.
who recognized that a long time ago, and I really wanted to be a part of carrying on that legacy. um, and I feel honored to do that. It's sometimes quite challenging,
Mhm.
but when I interviewed for the job in November of 2020, so during the pandemic, I had been at my job for 10 and a half
Mhm.
years. It was a big change, and I knew it was a bit of a reach for me. But I remembered meeting Barbara Stone and also working with her son, Barham, for 10 and a half years. And it really felt
Mhm.
like I was coming full circle and that I was coming home. So that is really the kind of both what motivated me and also that story. Just being connected to all of the families in Greenville, really thousands of families that I got to know on a very personal level and still maintain relationships with.
That's amazing. And something you said earlier made me think about something that we actually say here at accessiBe and in the nonprofit partnership program. You mentioned that there is still so much that can be done. And we like to talk about accessibility as a journey, not a destination. That the goal is always to become more accessible and to learn about what else you can do to be more accessible and more inclusive. So it really just resonated with me, and I kind of wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you.
Um, so I am, we of course we have like a list of questions that I sent you previously, and I'm going to skip around a little bit. But you mentioned earlier in the conversation about all of the experience that you have working within the community. And I wanted to tie it a little bit into businesses and into brands. And I am curious what you think the biggest current gaps are in businesses and prioritizing access and inclusion.
I have a couple of pieces. I have a couple of
Mhm.
responses to that. I think that all kind of fit in together, but
Sure.
I think through so we let me start over. We, as I mentioned, have the UP Employment Initiative, and UP stands for Upward
Mhm.
Professionals. And this was developed as a partnership with both a hospitality management company as well as
Mhm.
a actual hotel owner in Greenville. And it has been an incredible partnership. We're going on our 1 year anniversary of the Up Employment Initiative, and we really are starting to look at expanding. And I think one of the biggest gaps there with businesses is we would like businesses, and there are some that do this, but we would like businesses to start thinking beyond entry level positions, um, and really thinking about their employee, how they can invest in their employee with a disability, just like they probably invest in their employees without disabilities, how they can invest in
Mhm.
that employee to give them an opportunity, or not give them necessarily, but provide opportunities for advancement, even if that's
Mhm.
incremental. But to be really creative and flexible and identify places where somebody can grow and really provide pathways for that. And I think
Mhm.
we talk about systemic change a lot, and systemic change is that is our goal, right? We want to help create a community where people with disabilities can flourish, because they're given opportunities, not because we're burning down the system that exists or the structure that exists. Because if we did that, then we would be facing a whole other set of barriers and problems. So we like you what you said resonated with me as well. It's about a journey and about making progress and kind of building on the foundation. So
Mhm.
really, we would like businesses to kind of acknowledge that and embrace that maybe they're not perfect and maybe they're not fully accessible, but they can start to move in the right direction. And it doesn't have to happen, like you said, it doesn't have to be a destination. It doesn't have to happen all at once. But really, the systemic change comes from that incremental change where you're really rebuilding or restructuring. The Up Employment Initiative also, one of our goals is to really reduce bottlenecking in those entry level
Mhm.
positions. So one that those opportunities for growth and advancement is really important, but we want to see people continuing to move through
Mhm.
employment, so that the people that don't want to work or maybe are not capable of working have access to those day services that many people with disabilities who are unemployed are using those services when they really could be and want to be working. So I
Mhm.
think just having businesses kind of adopt that philosophy and understanding. Um, and then we also, through Greenville Can, we have several project teams that work in the community. They're comprised of volunteers from different agencies or organizations, who have identified barriers, or gaps in services, and we're taking action to fill those gaps. And we have an accessibility team actually, and our project is to build, in partnership with the city of Greenville, is to build a web-based app, um,
Mhm.
that will basically share with the general public the accessibility of different restaurants and businesses on our
Cool.
main street. And we've
Mhm.
we've developed the assessment through ADA guidelines, but also we've gone a little bit beyond just physical accessibility and started to talk about accessibility for families who might have a child with autism, or accessibility
Mhm.
for um, people with a disability that may not be a physical disability.
Mhm.
So, kind of broadening businesses understanding of what a disability is also something that we are hoping to really educate the community a little bit more about, in collaboration with our other organizations. While we want to be kind of the leader of our community, we really believe in our partnerships, and using all of the organizations and agencies that are doing this work, so that none of us are kind of alone out there.
Right. Right. That's really amazing. I mean, I think it's so important to, I mean, I think it's easy sometimes when you're in a specific space to look at other organizations who might be doing similar work, or, even not so similar work, and look at them as competitors almost, whether that being, for funding, or for, clients, or for people, from the community using the services. And I think that's really amazing that you look at them as partners, because at the end of the day, we all have a common mission, and that is, to increase accessibility and awareness about the communities of people with disabilities. So I think that's really wonderful. And Lara, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today. I've learned a lot from the conversation.
Okay.
And it really has been a pleasure to learn more about Barbara Stone and about the foundation and the camp. Yeah, I guess we will definitely be in touch, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much. It's such a great opportunity. And again, we love to work with accessiBe, and I really appreciate it. It was great to meet you face to face, virtually. And I'm really excited to see the finished product.
Amazing. But we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good one.